This little girl went on an adventure that was out of this world. And it all started when she tried to pet her dog in the backyard. She thought that this was going to be like any other day, just playing with her dog in the safety of the garden. But then all of a sudden, the big mastiff did something nobody could ever expect. Girl, 5, pets dog in her backyard. Pay close attention to his reaction. Layla had always been fascinated by animals. She loved spending time with her grandparents on their farm, playing with the chickens, goats, and cows. But what she loved most was their loyal farm dog, Jack. Jack was always by Layla's side, wagging his tail and following her around. When Layla's parents decided to move to the city for work, she was sad to leave Jack behind. But they promised her that they would get her a new dog once they settled in. Layla was thrilled at the prospect of having her own furry companion to play with. One sunny afternoon, Layla's parents surprised her with a new puppy. He was a fluffy black mastiff with big brown eyes and a wagging tail. Layla was overjoyed and named him Charlie. From that moment on, the two were inseparable. Charlie followed Layla everywhere she went, even to school. One day, Layla was playing in the backyard with Charlie. She had been teaching him how to fetch a ball, and he had been doing a great job. Layla decided to take a break and pet Charlie, and as she stroked his fur, she noticed that he was acting strange. His tail had stopped wagging, and he was staring at her with a furrowed brow. Layla wondered if she had done something wrong. She continued to pet Charlie, hoping that he would return to his happy self. But he didn't. In fact, he just kept staring emotionless in the same direction. Layla started to get worried. She had never seen Charlie behave this way before. Just then, Layla's mother came outside to check on them. She noticed Charlie's odd behavior and called the family veterinarian. The vet advised them to bring Charlie in for a checkup, but the vet couldn't find anything wrong with Charlie. "This is just a normal, healthy dog. He might just be on edge. Give him some rest, and if nothing changes, get back to me," he said. Layla's parents were relieved to hear that Charlie was fully healthy, but they could not shake the feeling that something was off. Charlie continued to act strange over the next few days, and Layla couldn't figure out what was bothering him. She spent hours trying to comfort him, petting him and playing with him, but he remained distant and aloof. One day, Layla was sitting in the garden with Charlie, watching the birds fly overhead. Charlie was lying beside her, his head on his paws, staring off into the distance. Suddenly, he jumped up and started barking excitedly. Layla was surprised at his sudden outburst. It looked like he was feeling agitated again. The same agitation he had experienced before the vet. "What's going on, Charlie? Why are you acting like this?" Layla went over and tried to pet her dog. At the same time, she thought it would be a good idea to call her parents, but right before she could, she noticed that he was staring at a small hole in the fence. Layla had never seen the hole before, and she wondered if Charlie had discovered it. She watched as he started to paw at the hole, trying to make it bigger. Layla was curious, but also a little scared. She had never ventured outside of their garden before, and she didn't know what lay on the other side of the fence. But Charlie was determined. He kept pawing at the hole, barking, and ushering her to follow him into the unknown. Charlie turned around and looked at Layla, wagging his tail excitedly. Layla hesitated for a moment, but then she made up her mind. She had to follow Charlie and see where he was going. She squeezed through the hole in the fence and found herself in a small, overgrown field. Charlie was running ahead of her, his nose to the ground. Layla followed him, feeling a mixture of excitement and apprehension. She had no idea where Charlie was taking her, but she trusted him. They ran for a few minutes until they came to a clearing in the middle of the field. Layla gasped when she saw what was there. It was a small, dilapidated shack with broken windows and a sagging roof. It looked like it hadn't been lived in for years. Charlie ran up to the door of the shack and started barking. Layla was hesitant to go inside, but she knew she had to follow Charlie. She pushed the door open and was hit with a musty, stale smell. She covered her nose and stepped inside. The shack was empty. except for a few pieces of old furniture and a pile of old newspapers in the corner. Layla wondered why Charlie had brought her here. She looked around, trying to find any clues. That's when she heard it. A faint scratching sound came from the corner of the room. She followed the sound until she came to a small cupboard that was pushed up against the wall. Charlie was whining and pawing at the cupboard, indicating that something was inside. Layla slowly opened the cupboard and found an old metal box buried beneath the dirt. Layla excitedly opened the box, and inside, she found a bunch of old letters and photographs. She recognized her grandparents in some of the pictures, and she realized that the shack had once belonged to her family. As she looked through the pictures, Layla learned that her great-grandfather had hidden a treasure on the farm, but no one had been able to find it. Layla was determined to find the treasure, and with the help of Charlie, she set out to search the farm. They searched high and low, digging in the dirt and checking every nook and cranny. Finally, they stumbled upon a small wooden chest hidden behind a pile of old hay. Layla eagerly opened the chest and gasped at what she saw. Inside, there was a glittering gold locket and a map that led to the location of more treasure. Layla couldn't believe her luck. She always played pirates with her dad. And now she was on a real-life treasure hunt. She had found one piece of the treasure right in her backyard. But as she looked at the map, she realized that the treasure was located beyond the fence that separated their property from the woods that lay behind their house. This now got way bigger than she had ever imagined. And because of the previous pirate adventures she had with her dad, she decided something. She was going to find the rest of the big treasure with her father. 2 pirate captains in real life. With Charlie as their treasure-finding sniffer dog. Plus, Layla could not read well yet. She found this locket by just simply looking at the pictures. So who knew what secrets would be revealed when the letters were translated as well? Excited by the prospect of finding more treasure, Layla ran back to the house to show her parents what she had found. She told them about the shack and the map, and her parents were amazed. They agreed to help her search for the rest of the treasure, but only on the condition that they would take it slow and be careful. The next day, Layla and her family set out into the woods behind their house, following the map that Layla had found. They walked for hours, following the winding path through the dense forest. Charlie was leading the way, his nose to the ground. Layla's parents were impressed by Charlie's ability to sniff out the treasure, and they joked that he was a natural-born treasure hunter. As they walked deeper into the woods, the path became steeper and more treacherous. Layla was getting tired, but she refused to give up. She was determined to find the treasure, no matter what. And she was sure that Charlie could sense her determination. Suddenly, Charlie stopped in his tracks, his nose in the air. Layla's parents saw it too. They looked up and saw a glint of gold in the distance. Layla's heart raced as they approached the spot. When they reached it, they saw a small cave hidden behind a wall of thick vines. The entrance was small, and Layla's parents had to crawl inside. But Layla was fearless. She pushed past her parents and crawled inside the cave. The air inside was damp and musty, and Layla could barely see a thing. She reached into her pocket and pulled out a flashlight, shining it around the cave. The walls were covered in moss, and the ground was littered with old bones and rusted tools. But as she shone the light further into the cave, she saw something that made her heart skip a beat. There, in the back of the cave, was a pile of glittering jewels and gold coins. Layla's eyes widened in amazement. She had found the treasure. She picked up one of the coins and examined it closely. It was ancient and covered in dirt, but it shone like a diamond. This treasure looked expensive. But she did not know for sure. Maybe it was all fake. Layla's parents crawled into the cave and were just as amazed as Layla was. They hugged her tightly. They knew that Layla had accomplished something incredible. They spent the rest of the day exploring the cave, taking stock of the treasure, and making plans for what to do with it. As the sun started to set, they crawled out of the cave and made their way back home. Layla couldn't stop grinning. She had always loved animals, but now she had discovered a new love, treasure hunting. She knew that she wanted to keep searching for treasure with Charlie by her side. But as she lay in bed that night, she realized that there was still one mystery that she had yet to solve. Who had hidden the treasure in the first place? Why had they never come back for it? And what was the involvement of her grandparents? Layla's grandparents both passed away last year, so it was not something she could simply ask them. This was a mystery she had to figure out by herself. Well, with a little help from her parents and, of course, her detective dog Charlie, who was always at her side. Layla knew that this was a question that would take a lot of digging to answer. But she was determined to solve it. The next morning, Layla woke up early, eager to start her new adventure. She went out into the backyard and sat down next to Charlie. She stroked his fur and whispered to him, "Charlie, we're going to find out who left this treasure behind. And we're going to find even more treasure." Charlie wagged his tail as if he understood. Layla spent the next few weeks investigating this mystery. She visited the local historical society and the library to research the history of the area. She talked to neighbors who had lived in the area for a long time, hoping to find some clues. All with her parents, of course. And she even went to the town hall to search through old records and documents. Through her investigations, Layla learned that the land where her family's farm was built had once belonged to a wealthy merchant in the 19th century. The merchant was known to have been a bit eccentric, and rumors had circulated that he had hidden a treasure somewhere on his property before his death. But no one had ever been able to find it. Layla also discovered that her great-grandfather had worked for the merchant as a groundskeeper, and he had been one of the last people to see the merchant before he died. This made Layla even more curious. Was it possible that her great-grandfather already knew about the location of the treasure? Layla decided to look through the old letters and photographs she had found in the metal box. She hoped that they would provide some clues. She and her father spent hours poring over the letters, trying to decipher the faded handwriting. They looked at the photographs, trying to see if there was anything hidden in the background. They were real-life pirates once again. And finally, they found something. A letter from the merchant to her great-grandfather, thanking him for his many years of loyal service. In the letter, the merchant had mentioned a special project that he was working on, something that he said would be the greatest treasure of all. Layla felt a thrill of excitement as her father read those words. She was sure that this special project was the last part of the treasure she had been searching for. But where was it located? Both modern pirates went over the letter again, looking for any clues. And that's when Layla was the one to see it. A small doodle of a tree with wide branches in the margin of the letter. Layla remembered that there was a tree on the farm that her great-grandfather had always said was special. It was an old oak tree that stood in the middle of a large field, surrounded by nothing else. Layla decided to investigate the tree. She took Charlie and went to the field. When they arrived, Layla looked up at the tree, and she was mesmerized by its imposing stature. Its trunk was massive, and its branches stretched high into the sky. Layla circled the tree, looking for any sign of the treasure. She noticed a small stone at the base of the tree. She lifted it up and started digging. But the ground was too hard for her hand to make it through. Luckily, she had her companion Charlie with her. He could easily get through. Charlie's paws made quick work of the ground beneath the tree. And that was when they found it. A little canvas bag. It looked old. She looked hesitantly at her parents, but they encouraged her to open it. She slowly opened the dirty bag, and inside, she found something that would strengthen her family bond forever. She dug around and found a small key. Layla's heart raced as she figured out where the key was for. The treasure from the cave was not important, because this key fit on the locket she found as the first part of her hunt. She put the key into the keyhole, and the locket popped open. What she then saw made everyone's heart melt. It was a picture of her great-grandfather with his own family. And on the back of the picture, it said the following: "In the end, wealth means nothing. Because the only treasure that matters is family." And Layla and her parents knew he was right. In the end, they donated the entire treasure to the National Museum. but the locket they kept. It became a family heirloom because it represented the most important part: family love.